Thing. Published by Divine Tao Library. Translator, Salavan and Godbrandy. Translation checker, Pew Pew Lasergun. Editor and proofreader, Leo of Zion Mountain and Dale Ligerkeys. You really are courting death. Yao Zhu was livid as blood started to rush to his head. He was definitely seriously injured, but he was still a second-order Emperor Realm Master. For someone of his status to be blackmailed and extorted by a mere third-order Dao Source Realm Junior so blatantly, how could he possibly bear it? He was so furious that he wanted to slap Yang Kai to death this very instant. He did not believe that Yang Kai had another Emperor authority bead, as it was rare for any ordinary person to have even one, not to mention a second. How dare you threaten this young master? Do you think you won't die here and now? Yang Kai warned. With just you, Yao Zhu coldly sneered with mockery on his face. Yang Kai turned his head to look at Sun Yunshu and reached out, give me back the token. Sun Yunshu did not know what he planned to do, but the token was brought by Yang Kai in the first place, and since he had summoned Bing Yun's Emperor Authority bead earlier, it was clear that Yang Kai had a deep relationship with her master. Therefore, Sun Yunshu did not hesitate and hurriedly held the token in both hands and gave it back to Yang Kai. Yang Kai raised the token high in the next moment while sweeping his gaze around and shouted, in accordance with Ice Heart Valley tradition, the one who possesses the Ancestral Founder's token will represent the Ancestral Founder herself. And Ruo Yun and Sun Yunshu were all stunned at his words, and they soon remembered that there was indeed such a rule. Therefore, they hurriedly fell to their knees and greeted in unison, Disciple greets Ancestral Founder. Quote. Seeing this, Yang Kai's cold eyes landed on Yao Zhu and Feng Shi, and he sternly shouted, in the name of Senior Bing Yun, I order you to kill these two. Yao Zhu and Feng Xi's faces changed drastically as fear overwhelmed them. Both of them withdrew several steps in unison as they became highly alert. The trivial Yang Kai was indeed not enough to be placed in their eyes. However, Ice Heart Valley's elders were not the same. There were as many as a dozen Emperor Realm Masters present, with 2 at the second-order Emperor Realm. With Yao Zhu now seriously injured, it was impossible for them to be their opponent. Once these women executed this order, today would certainly mark the end of their lives. Ice Heart Valley's elders were all dumbfounded, but soon, Sun Yunshu flew out and landed behind Yao Zhu and Feng Shi, blocking their path of escape. The other women saw this, and although they felt that this was a bit inappropriate, they still scattered and surrounded the two from Seeking Passion sect, each of them taking out their artifact as they prepared to make a move. Yao Zhu immediately turned pale while Feng Shi was trembling and gulping nervously. As Seeking Passion sect's young sect master, he had been brought up in a privileged environment and never encountered a life-threatening situation before. This was the moment he discovered what true fear felt like. Yang Kai was laughing at the side while playing with the token, wearing a villainous expression on his face. Young master, and Ruo Yun looked at Yang Kai and in a soft voice asked, do you really want to kill them? She did not want to kill Yao Zhu and Feng Shi here. After all, the status of these two was extraordinary. If they really died at the hands of Ice Heart Valley, Seeking Passion sect would definitely come for retribution. If the two sects went to war, the entire Northern Territory would be devastated. Even if her master returned, she was afraid that the sects would suffer heavy casualties. As the current Valley Master, Ruo Yun had to consider this. She was afraid that Yang Kai really planned to order her and others to kill them in a moment of anger. If that was the case, she would rather disobey such an order from the Ancestral Founder's token holder, and she believed that even if her master came to learn of this, she would not blame her. Yang Kai smiled and lightly said, that all depends on whether these two are sensible or not. When Ruo Yun heard this, she calmed down and began to see that this youth in front of her was not that simple. He gave this order in order to gain some benefits from Yao Zhu. Otherwise, he would not have continued to explain and would have urged Ice Heart Valley to execute his order. As long as no one dies, everything should be fine. And Ruo Yun thought in her heart and no longer inquired any further. However, she was still curious as to the extent Yang Kai would go. Valley Master and Elder Son, as Emperor Realm Masters, are you both willing to be ordered around by a mere brat of unknown origin? You two have esteemed status and strength. Aren't you afraid that word would spread and others would start to laugh at you? Yao Zhu did not think he could reason with Yang Kai, so he instead turned to Ruo Yun and Sun Yunshu, hoping they would be more mindful about their status and not to act so nonsensically. Sun Yunshu lightly spat out, the Ancestral Founder's token is here, and he bears it, so we cannot disobey. Vice Sect Master, if you have a problem with this, you need to go see my honored master and discuss it. Yao Zhu was dumbfounded. Bing Yun's emperor authority bead had nearly taken his life, so if he really saw her in person, how would he dare discuss terms with her? Yao Zhuo's mood was extremely complicated. He had never been so humiliated before. Worse though, this humiliation came at the hands of a youth whose cultivation was far inferior to his. However, people under the eaves had to bow down. After a long silence, he could only take a deep breath and ask, "What do you want?" Yang Kai grinned, "Vice Sect Master, there is no need for you to be so nervous. Everything in this world is negotiable. I just need to seek some small compensation and this young master can pretend that what just happened never occurred. Just spit it out. What do you want?" Yao Zhu asked. Yang Kai put up a finger and said with indifference, "This young master only wants one thing." "Fine, what is it?" When Yao Zhu heard him say that he only wanted one thing, he couldn't help but calm down. If that was the case, then there was indeed an opportunity to negotiate. "Hand over your space ring, then get the hell out of here." Yang Kai fixed his eyes on the ring on Yao Zhuo's hand and stated his terms. "What?" Yao Zhuo's eyes immediately erupted with flames and roared, "Impossible." Earlier, Yang Kai said he only wanted one thing, so Yao Zhu assumed Yang Kai simply wanted to save face and to request for something as compensation. However, it was only now that he realized that the words that Yang Kai muttered were not to save face. Instead, he was clearly attempting to make use of this situation to rob everything from him. He, a second-order Emperor Realm Master, naturally had numerous treasures in his space ring. Before he left to visit Ice Heart Valley, he had prepared everything for Feng Shi and Ziyu's wedding in 2 days. All the gifts from his sect were in his space ring. The Seeking Passion sect was one of the top sects in the Northern Territory, and since it was their young sect master's wedding, naturally they had not been stingy. The bride's price was comparable to what a second-class sect could earn in 10 years, without considering the other gifts that could be regarded as precious treasures. Yang Kai's face sank and he coldly ordered, "Kill him, but kill the young one first. Don't let him die from a single strike, make sure to slowly chop off his limbs first, and then cripple his cultivation. I want him to taste every possible method of torture before he dies." Once his order was given, Sun Yunshu's sword swung as she chopped towards Feng Shi. Feng Zai's face turned white with fear, as he retreated while screaming, "No." Sun Yunshu was undeterred though. She was extremely hot-tempered, and just like when she first met Yang Kai, as soon as she was given the order, she immediately acted upon it. "Wait." Yang Kai raised his hand. Sun Yunshu's sword immediately stopped as it rested on Feng Zai's arm. A sharp chilling sensation enveloped Feng Zai's whole body as he lost strength and immediately fell to the ground, and when he turned his head to look, he saw a deep line of red on his shoulder. If Yang Kai had shouted even a moment slower, his arm would have been cut off. Yang Kai looked at Feng Shi with a smile. Young sect master seems to have something to say. "Yes, yes." Feng Shi heard him and quickly nodded his head. "Then speak, no one is holding your tongue hostage." Feng Shi opened his mouth but did not know what to say. He thought for a while before turning his head to Yao Zhu. "Martial uncle, give him your space ring, we do not need to lower ourselves to his level." "Nonsense." Yao Zhu shouted angrily, "I, the vice sect master of Seeking Passion sect, would rather live on my feet than die on my knees. Having a desire for this king's ring is no different to slapping this king's face. Xie, don't be afraid. This little brat is just trying to scare you, he wouldn't dare take your life. If he dares to, when the sect master comes in 2 days, he will utterly flatten Ice Heart Valley." "Take my life," Feng Shi murmured, his face turning pale as deep in his heart a strong sense of fear rushed out and consumed him. He had always been the one who killed others, so when did he ever experience the threat of being killed himself? "No. If I were to die, what use is there for father to flatten Ice Heart Valley? If I die, what will happen to my 69 wives? Martial uncle, just give him your ring. I am the young sect master of the Seeking Passion sect. I will be the one who leads the Seeking Passion sect in the future and become the ruler of the Northern Territory. How could I possibly die here?" Yao Zhu did not expect Feng Shi to be so spineless. He had never known that this young sect master was such a coward to be frightened to this extent by mere threats. Those from Ice Heart Valley also seemed to be seeing the real Feng Shi for the first time, and all of them revealed contempt in their eyes. Although it was a matter of life and death, the way Feng Shi acted was nothing short of shameful. Which cultivator's path was not filled with struggle and danger? It was common for them to face life-threatening situations along their way. It was now clear that Feng Shi had been too sheltered, and when it came to confronting danger, he lost himself. As Seeking Passion sect's young sect master, he was a disgrace. Feng Shi was ashamed of himself when he noticed all the contemptuous gazes gathered upon him, but what was face compared to his own life? He kept begging Yao Zhu to take off his space ring. 69 wives. Young sect master, you are really fortunate. Many must envy you, Yang Kai coldly said. However, there was not a trace of envy in his eyes, only mockery. Young sect master, you may rest assured, if you were to die here, I will take good care of your 69 wives for you. This young master's physical prowess is quite exceptional, so I will definitely not let their bedsides be cold. And Ruo Yun blushed and spat out, young master, please show some propriety. Ziyu also glared at him with a strange expression before rolling her eyes. When he heard Yang Kai would take care of his wives, Feng Zai's eyes turned red and he reached out to Yao Zhu and ripped off his space ring. It was uncertain if Yao Zhu was so disappointed in Feng Zai's that he simply gave up resisting, but in that moment he allowed him to easily take off his space ring without any resistance.